All right, good afternoon, everyone. We've got ourselves a very interesting update to our severe weather threat. In regards to the metro and the rest of the Missouri River Valley, looks like we've enhanced a couple of potential weather phenomena with some of our severe storm activity, which is why we're back in giving you a live update here across all of our social media platforms and including streaming as well. So we said and mentioned in our previous kind of update to you guys that we do get updates every few hours or couple of hours, one of them being around the noon time. And as we went live at noon, we did get those updates in regards to the severity of the storm activity, the timing of those storms, and what kind of phenomena we may see within those severe storms that are predicted to populate. So first and foremost, I'm going to bring you in to the National Weather Service. We're going to bring you over to the NWS and show you that we do have a severe weather risk out there for you. And the enhanced risk has not budged from our viewing region. Right there it is on our map there. And you notice that we've switched this over and we've actually highlighted the potential for hail development. That's what this map is that you're looking at right now. And notice that red zone is about the same situation that we have for the enhanced zone for severe storm activity. Now within that red zone, that's a 30% chance of seeing at least golf ball size hail. Outside of that is the yellow zone. That's your slight risk for severe storm activity that we're under. And that's about a 15% chance for that same size hail development in diameter, about a golf ball size. So we've got a pretty good opportunity there to actually bring in maybe some golf ball size hail or at least marble size hail with the severe storm activity. That's one of our updates too. And Janae, if you can scroll over to where it says tornado on the National Weather Service, that's the other latest update that we just saw. It doesn't look like much there in that green zone, that 2% chance. But we talked about this earlier this morning on our last live stream here, that we were under a 2% threat. And that was a good thing for us. There is potential still to see some rotation, but we are in a lower zone for that kind of rotation potential. Well, now we've increased to a more sturdy 2% threat. That is an issue for us. Now, that still puts us in the green zone, but we're on the cusp of pushing over to more of a moderate threat to maybe get some of those storm cells in to a kind of rotational situation. So that's some of the updates that we've got right now to the severity or the phenomena that we may see within some of those severe storm cells. The other thing is when it comes down to our watches and warnings that have actually popped up for us. So we're going to take you over to the satellite radar and show you we've actually got a bit of a blue zone there on our map. You see that off around Holton, Topeka, but it does go into Atchison County there. Looks like even Jefferson County. That, my friends, is a severe thunderstorm watch. So we're going to go ahead and get involved with that and talk about the details, at least when it comes down to our viewing area with that watch. And the box states Douglas, Franklin, Oswego, Shawnee, these areas are all under that severe thunderstorm kind of watch. It does stretch down to Anderson and even Jefferson County there up towards the north. Obviously, Lawrence is going to be a part of this, Ottawa and Garnett. But this is up until 7 p.m. tonight. It's a very interesting time frame that we're talking about, 7 p.m. This is also around the time that we're ending the severity of those storms around these locations, but much more concentrated into maybe the metro and then pressing more towards the south and towards the east, maybe Harrisonville or Warrensburg. You see that yellow zone that's highlighted there up just north of Manhattan. That is a severe thunderstorm warning that we have been tracking. Let's see if we can push forward back to the satellite radar system and kind of drag over and see that storm cell. Even though this is outside of our viewing area, this is still a good opportunity to see the intensity of these storms developing out west, because this may be tracking into our neck of the woods. And notice that I don't see much when it comes down to rotation, but notice that on the backside of the stronger part of this storm here at the end of this kind of time frame, right up to the current time, you see kind of a little bit of a bow there in the back. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to highlight that for you when we get into the now. Let me actually put that into now for you and also highlight that little bit of bow here. You see that little bit of a bow? Now, I'm not concerned about this turning into a tornado, not at all. All right, I want to make that clean and clear here. We're not looking at this for the potential of actually seeing rotation with this particular severe thunderstorm. However, this does show you that we've got a lot of inflow coming in, so much so the wind is so powerful that it's moving the clouds faster than the storm system is moving in the east direction. All right, that's why we have this kind of bow on the back end of those storms. So we could be dealing in this particular location 50 to 70 mile per hour winds. All right, so that's something that we've been talking about all morning long for you guys. And indeed, with this particular severe thunderstorm warning, they have radar indicated 50 to 70 mile per hour winds. Now, obviously, this is still outside of our viewing area, but it gives you an idea of what we can anticipate as we get to that time frame that we're looking at that severe thunderstorm threat. That's another thing that we need to discuss here, actually, is the timing of those severe storms, because we do have a new update in regards to that as well. So let's go into that forecast for you. That hour-by-hour forecast track from our HER model run. Again, this is a good model run that we like to use because it usually shows pretty good confidence in where we could see that inclement weather within about a 6 to 12 hour time span. It's actually pretty good at forecasting for us, so that's why we like to rely on this particular model run. However, there's about 5 or 6 other models that we take into consideration in regards to tracking severe weather, and that just goes to show you if we're using this model run, it means that we've got a lot of consistencies with the other 5 models that we like to use on top of the one right here, this HER model run. Now, this is about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is what I wanted to talk about here. So notice that Wyandotte, Leavenworth, maybe up around portions of Platte, just north of Clay County there, and even moving out towards Marshall and Odessa, well ahead of the actual storm system itself. We're actually pulling in a few thunderstorms to populate the area prior to the main storm system. So this could actually ignite a few severe thunderstorm warnings before we even get into the bulk of this, which is going to be around maybe 5 or 6 o'clock tonight. And you can see that still backtracked out towards western central Kansas and then moving up into Nebraska, just outside of Atchison County on the Missouri side and Interstate 29. So that's another kind of update that we have. We could be seeing some early pop-up thunderstorms. There's also something else in regards to the heat that we need to discuss, and I'm going to bring in the current conditions for you because we have blown out our high temperature forecast. It's not just us, it's the National Weather Service and all of our other kind of affiliates out there. We were expecting for lower 90s with feel-like temperatures to the upper 90s, but friends, we've already gotten into the low 90s, and we should really be into the mid-upper 80s around this time frame. So let's go ahead and get back into it and involve ourselves with our current conditions. And I got KCI coming in at 92 degrees, downtown already coming in at 93. Our forecast for today's high was about 90 degrees. So notice that it's only 12:50 in the afternoon. We've got several more hours to go here before we truly do peak with our heat. This means that we could be talking about more of a middle or upper 90s to the forecast. And this is just due to copious amounts of warm, moist, unstable air filtering in ahead of the storm activity that's out there towards our north and west. So we're starting to plume and pool this heat so much so that it's actually starting to bust our forecasts and increase our temperatures now to more likely towards the mid 90s. This means our feel-like temperatures will be more likely this afternoon prior to the main event here of storm activity, potentially hit into the lower triple digits, maybe between about 100 to 103 degrees. The funny thing is the National Weather Service hasn't issued a heat advisory yet. But I got to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if they want to pop one in quickly before the storm activity comes in. You know, we still have people out there that work in construction, you know, obviously people who work in the yard. This is going to be an issue for them with this kind of heat, surprising heat. So please try to, take time, take breaks in the AC, shaded areas. If you are working outdoors, any kind of a moderate strenuous activity could get you into a heightened threat for maybe heat stroke or heat exhaustion. And again, this is all just ahead of the severe storm activity that we're going to be dealing with out there. So let's get back involved with it. I'm going to show you the severe thunderstorm threat that we've got here, the risks of severe weather. Right back at it again here, still holding true to that enhanced risk, and that does include the metro. Kansas City, it does include Clay County, Johnson, Jackson counties on both sides there. We're talking about Leavenworth, right on over to Douglas, Atchison counties on the Kansas side. And now notice what I've done. I have changed the tornado threat, okay? I'm going to highlight that for you because we were over here with the tornado threat earlier this morning. And because we've increased that severe thunderstorm threat and we've increased the instability to our atmosphere, we have now pushed that tornado threat or the rotation threat a little bit closer to that yellow zone. It's still in the green. It's still technically a lower chance, but we're starting to edge closer and closer to maybe some potential of at least tornado watches, maybe some rotation in some of these storms. That'll be radar indicated. That is something that we're really going to be alert here to the Storm Track 5 Weather Center and all of our meteorologists here to keep you informed and updated. If we do see that rotation, if we just get the watches out there, we are going to be the ones to let you know about it so you can prep your family and yourself for that inclement weather. But that's definitely something that I've got my eyebrow raised to. That is something I'm going to keep my meteorological eye on all day long for you. This is why I'm actually here past the noontime hour. I'm going to actually continue on until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we're going to have the switch, and we're going to have meteorologist Savannah Tennyson in, along with meteorologist Alina Lee. They are going to go together on double coverage on tracking that severe storm potential that we have as we move towards the late afternoon. Let me go ahead and clear this out, get those kind of circles off the map here for you. And let's go into the humidity chart. I want to show you that again. I want to show you that humidity content because even that model has changed compared to where we were. So let me rotate that through and load that up. Quick look at the plaza there. Quite nice. The clouds, just some cumulus clouds out there. But there it is, our new update to our humidity forecast. You can see how we kind of sort of tank the moisture content. We've already kind of sort of done that. That's around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, this kind of area right here of this tank in moisture content. And the reason why is because that moisture gets sucked up to those storms that are actually out towards the west right now. So that's why we see those signs of a quick drop in the humidity. And then as we move forward in time to the late afternoon, then we get back into the climb and that moisture content. So high humidity comes back. That means we're seeing aggressive moisture return to the viewing area. And that's around the time between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. that we're getting into that storm activity. Now remember, we talked about this before. Moisture is the key component today of our severe weather threat. The more moisture we have, the better opportunity for widespread development of winds gusting between 50 and 70 miles per hour and hail development that could get up to maybe golf ball size or larger. All right. And right now that moisture content looks like it's returning back to us to give us that threat for more of a broad spectrum of gusty winds. So what I mean by that is, normally on a day like this, perhaps a slight risk or a marginal risk, we'll get isolated severe storm activity. So maybe like a town, for example, Paola might get into a severe thunderstorm and produce maybe gusty winds at about 50 or 60 miles per hour. Perhaps maybe even Clinton or just some random local kind of township or city may see that kind of a threat for us. Instead, we'll see more of a widespread threat, meaning we're not talking about towns, we may be talking about a county. And we may not necessarily talk about just one county. We may have to discuss several counties all at one time experiencing 50 to 70 mile per hour winds. Okay, so that's what that moisture content means to us. The more moisture we have, the better chances we're going to be talking about widespread significant weather rather than an isolated event, which affects more people out there, and it may affect you in your town or your neighborhood. So we want to make sure that you're heads up to it. All right, looks like we've got ourselves another severe thunderstorm warning in place. It's, again, still well out west, but you can see we've got a double box that's out there closer to around the Manhattan area. And again, we've been registering from the National Weather Service radar indicated wind gusts at around, looks like about 60 miles per hour, possibly getting up to that 70 mile per hour situation with those gusty conditions. And it looks like they have the threat for hail as well. Again, radar indicated, not necessarily by spotter, but we are tracking that closely for you. Even though this is outside the viewing area, it just gives you a thought or an idea of, okay, they're already seeing this stuff out west, And we're already talking about severe storm activity for my neck of the woods, maybe around 5 or 6 o'clock. Maybe this is the kind of stuff we're going to be dealing with as we move on into our time frame for the severe storm. So that just gives you an idea. Now for us, already we've got severe thunderstorm watches in effect until 7 p.m. at night. That's going to be for extreme western counties, okay? That's going to be for Jefferson County. That's going to be for Douglas County. We've got Anderson County out there as well. That's a part of that severe thunderstorm watch. It's looking to lift by 7 p.m. because then the severe weather is expected to shift over closer to the metro, maybe closer to around Harrisonville or Warrensburg out there. So something we definitely have to watch out for sure. Let's go into the radar system. I think that's what we'll do, and push forward to the satellite radar and get you over to where we're seeing those severe storms right now. It's that same line, that same cluster of storms, and you can see how it's really starting to concentrate a nice significant line here. This is the kind of stuff that I was talking about, where we could be talking about a widespread threat, not just town by town. This is a 2-county situation for sure for the severe storms and the gusty winds out there. It's not just for maybe Swede Creek or maybe off around the town of Greene or Leonardville. This is kind of sort of an accumulation of all of these kinds of areas. And of course, we've got both an inflow and an outflow that we're considering here, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, an inflow is the wind and the energy trying to be sucked into the storm system before the storm gets into an area. That could definitely show you 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. That inflow that goes into that storm from the east and tracking up to the storm that's out to the west. But once the storm is over you, now we're not necessarily talking about an inflow more than we could be talking about an outflow, meaning we could be dealing with the storm activity dropping wind out of the storm and maybe tracking ahead of the storm. This is where we could get into a real bad situation of both the inflow and outflow kind of clashing with each other, and we get what's kind of like a gust front here. Sometimes we get even downbursts that drop out of these storms and kind of interact with that inflow and can produce some very damaging results due to wind. That could easily sound like or feel like as if you're in a tornado, but it's not quite a tornado at all. In fact, it's just wind dropping out of a storm and kind of interacting with that inflow that comes in this particular situation from the east and tracking into the storm that's out west. So those are things that we definitely have to watch out for. It's the same scenario that we may have to deal with here as the line of storm activity comes through by that early evening, all right? Again, we've had some updates. We've most definitely had some updates to our severe storm potential, the timing of some severe storms, new updates to our severe weather phenomena that may be popping into those, maybe severe thunderstorms that pop into our area overall. So let's go ahead and revert back into the timing of the severe storms themselves, right? Going back to our HER model run, I'm going to bring that in. It's going to take a quick second for us. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Janae. Again, Janae, off to the side here from the camera, driving us and letting me know about some questions, comments, and concerns on our Facebook. I've got that. One more time, I'm going to go through this timing, and then we will get to some of your questions and comments here. So let's go back to the forecast model track one more time here to show you where we're at. And we've got a new update here that we could produce some early storm activity. That's about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And some of those cells could produce a severe thunderstorm warning just by where we're at with the intensity on the storm map here. You see the rain rubric that we have that light green, and it goes all the way to that really bright pink or magenta there. It's a good indication of heavier downpours. That also tells me that we're lifting the storm higher into the atmosphere, which means that we've got a lot of inflow that will allow us to pull in energy and kind of suck it up into the mid or even upper levels of the atmosphere. And that may produce ourselves a severe thunderstorm warning or threat. So that's something we've got to watch out for. It could be as early as now 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's all ahead of the storm system itself. But we are still lining up 5, 6 o'clock at night for severe storm activity to impact the metro. You see that. There's 5, 5:45, and then there's 6 o'clock. And we are still looking at those dark reds, magentas, again, indicative of getting into powerful storm activity. This could be your severe weather activity right through the metro there and along I-70 right on over towards, well, really in between Odessa and Richmond on the Missouri side of I-72. And even moving over towards just outside on I-35, just outside of, looks like Anderson County, and moving just outside of Ottawa, we've got some strong storms that are looking to populate into those locations. So that timing has not changed. Let's see where we're at moving forward into about 7 o'clock here. And there's 7 o'clock. Looks like a bit more aggression with the storm activity off around, I believe that is Jackson County there, Lee Summit area in particular, maybe just north of Harrisonville. We've got a little bit more aggression in that severe storm activity. Notice Garnett and Ottawa. Yeah, there's that storm activity in an hour's time span getting into severe activity right there. That could be where we see some very aggressive storms. Let's go ahead and move this forward. 8 o'clock at night, 7:30, 7:45, there's 8 o'clock. And again, we are still looking at some coloration within the metro or highly populated areas from Olathe right on up towards even the Mission area, Fairway, and then right on over towards Lee Summit. Those oranges indicative of strong storms. We could still produce, 30 to 45 mile per hour winds even in that orange zone. But the more aggressive 50 to 70 mile per hour winds will be more likely in those magenta zones, Warrensburg, Odessa, Marshall, at around this time frame. And then moving forward into about 9, 10 o'clock at night, you can see how we finally start to break away from that heavy storm activity. And finally, 10 p.m., we should start to see more of a breezy or gusty threat rather than getting into storm activity, because behind the storm system, we should most definitely get into northeasterly flow. So winds coming out of the northeast at about 15 to 20 miles per hour. An occasional gust at 25 can't be ruled out there. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on Facebook right now. Isaac is up. Will we be able to get to the water park around 4:30 this afternoon, or will the storms be here by then? Honestly, we are looking at already isolated storm activity even around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, the bulk of our storm activity truly should be about 5:30. Coming into the metro. But I would not be surprised if we get lightning delays or, postponements in some of those water parks because we're getting too close to some of those storms. You got to remember, lightning can strike from 10 miles away from a storm cell. It doesn't have to be over you. It doesn't have to be a mile away. It's literally 10 miles. You can have lightning strike from a thunderstorm from 10 miles away. So that's why we have those lightning delays that happen. Even though the storm is not over the area, it's because we have that threat, which means water parks are going to be looking at that. So you might be seeing a no-go at those water parks around that time frame. Even so, maybe you get to the water park at 4:30. You're going to have all of 15 minutes to a half hour before they're like, get out of the water, get home, before we get into the storm threat out there. So it's just not even worth your while if you're kind of sort of starting the day now, trying to head over to those water parks. Another question from Isaac. What is the risk of power outages in KC? That's a great question. When we get to an enhanced risk like this and we're looking at the model activity for severe weather so high at this point, it is a very high chance you're going to be seeing down power lines because of down trees or just because of down power poles from the wind out there, or perhaps just getting hit by different types of debris. You got to remember, with 50 to 70 mile per hour winds, that can easily lift, a pool chair or a tricycle from your backyard or from your front yard and lift it into the air and do some serious damage. Another thing to think about here, right? A little bit of perspective, right? 70 mile per hour wind. We're on the cusp of a Category 1 hurricane. Okay, that's significant wind for the area. Now, that's not necessarily something that's going to happen all across the region, but there's that threat for it to occur. And we've got good chances to see at least a range of 50 to 70 mile per hour gusts. Even past week ago, we saw storm cells easily achieving that 70 mile per hour wind. We've seen them register to 68 mile per hour winds with down large branches and even some small trees going down and areas losing power at the same time in those locations. This is a higher chance for severe weather. This is a better chance for those higher wind, which means we're going to lead to a higher threat for power outages. And that does include the metro area, the KC area. All right. Carol says this is a good comment here. Time to anchor down the lawn furniture. If you can anchor it down, that's great. The best thing for you to do is to put it into the garage. Put it into an area that it is not going to be picked up by gusty conditions. Now, we do have a threat for hail development out there too. And that's something that we've got to watch out for our cars, right? Obviously, that's a big deal. I know about you, but unfortunately, in my neck of the woods of Leavenworth, where I live, I don't have a garage. I don't have a canopy. I don't have anything that I could kind of help my cars from being impacted by hail. So I'm at risk of Mama Nature at this point. But if you do have a garage and it's empty enough, or maybe it's a little bit on the messy side, but you've got time to organize it, get that vehicle or that motorcycle or that go-kart or whatever it may be into the garage, because our chances for hail development are high enough that I don't want to risk anybody keeping their car out on the road, out on the street, outside their home, or maybe in the driveway, and then get impacted by that hail development. Again, we're looking closer to around a moderate risk for hail development at 2 inches in diameter or larger in this particular situation. And to be quite honest, personally, I feel like we're going to be on the range of marble to golf ball size hail, more so than getting into, softball size hail. I think that's going to be more of an isolated event if that does ensue. And I think we're going to have more likely events of that marble size to golf ball size hail, or maybe a ping pong size hail in that kind of a situation, which can still do significant damage to a vehicle and could put a serious knot on your noggin if you are, caught in that kind of a hail threat. And I would not advise you to be outdoors in that kind of a situation for sure. April, this is a great question here. What will the impact be for the Azura Amphitheater in Bonner Springs? So we're talking off around, areas of Wyandotte County. We're out there around Leavenworth, kind of sort of closer to around the airport, friends. And that is a great opportunity for some significant storms. We've got the Wyandotte County Fair that's happening tonight. And I believe it's the first night for it. And I really don't think it's going to be a night that you want to be out and about, at least within the early evening. Now, if for some strange reason they go all the way to midnight with the fair, you're looking a bit better to be out there by about 9 o'clock at night if you want to catch, the end portion of that fair. I'm not exactly sure when the time of that fair, ends, but any kind of an outdoor event, obviously the example being the Azura Amphitheater, it's just not looking good here for the early and mid-evening time frame. The same thing goes for the Royals baseball game that is out and about with the Tampa Bay Rays. I really do see this, if it hasn't been delayed or canceled now, I do see this being a situation as we get closer to the timing of these storms where we could be talking about either a delay or just a postponement for that day, and maybe starting it up the next day in the afternoon, or an early evening, maybe a double game situation for Saturday, because there's another game. So let's see, what else do we have here? Let's go into it. Let's see, any more questions? A few comments here, some good comments. Let's see, Kevin says, impact to Starlight for the Tears and Fears concert tonight. We actually got a friend of ours here who actually TDs our newscast here, technical director. And, he's a good friend of mine, and he's actually wanting to head out to the Starlight Theater as well. I expect to see either a delay or cancellation of the events. You got to remember that, it's rain or shine at the Starlight, right? They always talk about that, except when there's a severe thunderstorm threat involved with the area. And I do believe that we're going to be getting into that situation. So I want you to get that to the back of your head if you're heading out to the amphitheater. Expect that you're most likely looking at a cancellation for tonight. I'm not sure if it's already involved with the Starlight right now. I don't know the details on that currently. But if they haven't done it yet, obviously you want to plan for it, but expect that there will be a cancellation because of the inclement weather that's coming in from the north and west. All right, so that was a good one. Isaac's got another one here for us. I have dinner reservations at Axios, 55th and Brookside at 8 o'clock at night. I live around 39th and Southwest Traffic Way. Will I be able to drive there easily? That's a great question, too. So we're talking about getting into the metro here. Timing for dinner is about 8 o'clock at night. We are looking better around 8 p.m. to exit out those storms. Drivability is a bit better, but it's still something we have to be extremely cautious about. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's get back into the timing with our radar, with our graphics program here. I love using this graphic program, and of course our live power Doppler radar. You know, it's one of those that is so sensitive. It picks up water vapor on our radar system instead of just shower activity. It's really great. But let's get into the actual forecast model data, right? So again, the timing of this. So Isaac says we've got dinner plans, Greg. We've got dinner plans at 8 o'clock at night. You know, he's talking about being in the metro here. So let's get back out to it. 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. You know, maybe you're like, okay, hey, it's only going to take me about 15 minutes to get to the restaurant. Maybe it's just 10 minutes, so I don't have to leave super duper late, right? We're going to do like 7:30 at night. So let's go ahead and push this through. There's 6 o'clock, 6:30. There is 6:45. Now we're into 7 o'clock, 7:15, 7:30. 7:45. There we are. So we're going to keep it there and show you where we're at. So we've got some bright reds there around the Lee Summit area on the south side and the southeast side of the metro. That's probably around Arrowhead, right? But nonetheless, we've got yellow zones and oranges that are indicative to the downtown area. This is where we could see not necessarily the severe storm activity, but we could easily still see thunderstorms. We could still see torrential rain, and we could still see winds that could gust between about 35 to 45 miles per hour. You know, it's not an end-all be-all to stay off the roads. It's definitely something that you shouldn't be on the roads for. Obviously, we want to play it safe. Is it navigable? Sure. But this is something that you have to take extreme caution to when it comes to navigating those roadways, even with the bypass of the bulk of our severe storms, which is more likely on that line, maybe around the Harrisonville, stretching up to Odessa and to Marshall. So it's plausible. Do I recommend it? Not really. I'm just telling you as it is. You know, if I had plans at 8 o'clock at night with the severe storm activity, I'd probably say, honey, we're in tonight. We're going to hold off on it unless you want to eat at like 9:30 at night, and that's a different story. Then you're looking much better to be out there, you know. So take that into consideration. That's just my perspective on it. Skills as a meteorologist and just as a person in general. I mean, you know, come on. Who wants to be on heavier downpours and gusts at like 35 miles per hour while you're trying to drive down the road? It's just not safe, just in general, right? All right, so let's see. Roxanne, how is Bonner Springs looking? Well, Bonner Springs, just like everybody else out there, right? Off around portions of you know, Leavenworth County, off around Wyandotte. You know, you're talking about kind of that metro loop area. We're still looking at that timing, 5:30, 6 o'clock at night is being the bulk of that severe storm activity. Again, the opportunity for gusts at 50 to 70 miles per hour still looking very high for us when it comes down to our severe weather threats. So yeah, that gives you an inclination of what we're talking about. But within that area, you know, Leavenworth and moving over towards Wyandotte, you get closer to about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It's much better odds of lighter wet weather or just heavier cloud cover with a bit of a breeze back of that storm system overall, which, by the way, has now managed to manipulate itself into one major storm system. So I want to show you that actually in our forecasts here. So we're going to go into what we call the synoptics of weather, right? The meteorology of weather with synoptics is basically telling you where the fronts are. And if we could, like, literally cut these storm systems in half and show you their insides. We're not quite into that situation yet, although we do like to show 3D imagery of those storms, which is still synoptics. But we would like to do that as we're tracking the storms within the area. But for now, let's just talk about the main meat and potatoes. This is the broad brush. But notice we've definitely changed the weather pattern overall. We don't have that stationary front to the south anymore. That is lifted. We now have ourselves a very robust warm front that is energizing the atmosphere, destabilizing the atmosphere. And with that low pressure system now coming off of Colorado and now transferring over into Kansas, we're starting to see a lot more severe storms populate in these locations, especially along I-70 and closer to around Manhattan. Notice that we still have that cold front to the north, but it's actually lifted a bit more to the north. It's not necessarily just north of Omaha. It's now made itself back up into the Dakotas and around Minneapolis. It's the strength of that warm front and low pressure system that has kind of forced itself in to the Central Plains and has forced that cold front to retract northward. Another kind of idea that I'll give you of how strong this kind of storm system is as we move forward in time. All right, so that's what we're looking at there. Let's give you a live look right now of what's out there within the metro. And it looks great. You know, we still have some clear skies out there, but again, you can see the haziness to our camera. This is not because we're dealing with any kind of a lower air quality situation. This is not because of CO2 or emissions from our vehicles. That's actually water vapor that you're looking at. A lot of humid, steamy conditions that we're dealing with right now. That's that ample moisture content to the atmosphere we've been talking about, and which is the key component to the severe storm threat that we're dealing with right now. So that's something that we have been tracking since early this morning, hoping that we can budge this so we don't see more of a broad brush of severe storm activity. And we've seen it break down a little bit, but we're still expecting to see more of a widespread threat, not just an isolated threat of severe storms. And it's because of that moisture content still holding to our atmosphere. The other thing that we have seen today is that, I'll be frank with you, we busted our high temperature. I mean, that's just across the board. We've seen a major pool of heat come in from the south, all ahead of the storm system, thanks to this warm front developing and really rising the heat here across the region. We were forecasting for temperatures in the lower 90s today, right? I'm talking about late afternoon, talking about those 90s. Let me show you. This was the forecast that we had at about 4 or 5 o'clock this morning, of 90 degrees. That's what we were expecting to peak here around the metro and KCI, was 90 degrees. Now, let me show you where we're at with our current conditions. This will be the temperature that's outside the door right now. When we get to the downtown metro, when we get to KCI, look at these temperatures. Olathe already at 90 degrees, Lawrence at 93, downtown at 94. 92 to KCI. We're expecting to be into the middle and upper 90s as air temperatures now. And that's due to the new pool of warm air being sucked in from that warm front that has developed over the past 3.5 hours here, friends. So it has busted our high temperature forecast. We're now expecting to see feel-like temperatures into the lower triple digits, all ahead of this storm system. There's our warm air lift. I mean, that no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? Warm air rises. If you have a 2-story home and you have the heat that's concentrated, maybe during the winter, you turn on the furnace, you do the second floor, and the second floor heats up for a little bit, and then it cools off real fast. But you head up to the second floor, and all of a sudden, wow, it feels like a furnace up here. It's because warm air rises, right? It's a lifting mechanism for the energy, for the moisture content to our atmosphere. And that's what we're dealing with. So most definitely have a lifting mechanism, which is one of the main things that we need for severe storm activity. We need instability. Instability to the atmosphere comes as we mix the atmosphere. Well, how do we mix the atmosphere? We need a lifting mechanism and we need moisture content. Well, we've got both of those. So now we're talking about moisture being mixed into the mid and upper levels thanks to warm air advection, right? Advecting warm air to the mid levels or transferring warm air from the surface to the mid levels of the atmosphere. And when we do that, we destabilize our atmosphere. We no longer have stability out there that would suppress thunderstorm development. So now that we've got instability, we've got moisture mixing to the mid-levels, we've got heat rising constantly, which, by the way, because we're hitting these kind of afternoon temperatures to the mid and upper 90s now, we're expecting to hold, these temperatures until storm activity rolls on through, which means that 5 or 6 o'clock at night, we could still be dealing with 80s. So then we have now a diurnal heating situation that takes over, meaning that all of the heat energy that is gobbed up by all of this concrete across the metro is now officially going to escape back into the atmosphere, even though we're dealing with storm activity out there. So it's going to continue to feed this lifting mechanism to the line of storms that move through the region, which is why we have such a prolonged opportunity for severe weather, not just through the metro, but moving right through into areas like Warrensburg, all the way out towards Sedalia, because those areas are still going to be dealing with that lifting mechanism, that heat, that rising heat. So wild stuff here. These are all the brand new updates that came in around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, which is why we decided to do another live stream update with you guys. Let's see if we've got any more information here. Let's see, Karen has a comment, and she says, we will get a little rain in Greenwood because Greenwood is in a weather bubble and everything goes around us. We'll see what happens on this situation. I'm not sure that there are going to be bubbles, especially if we're concentrating in that enhanced zone for storm activity. It's pretty significant to see some wet weather in any way, shape, or form. Now, maybe your area might only see 1/10 of an inch, but there are going to be areas that see an opportunity for 3/4 of an inch plus for rainfall out there because of the storm activity, the heavy downpour threat that we've got going on here. Okay, Dakota Bennett asks, okay, what about Paola? Well, Paola is still looking at a strong chance for severe storm activity. The timing's a little bit different in that particular location, so let's go ahead and talk about that first. I'm going to bring back our forecast model runs here and go back into Paola. As we bring that up, I'm going to go ahead and switch on over to our graphics program here, back to the forecast track that we've got. Let's bring you immediately back on over towards 5 or 6 o'clock, right? So here's 5 o'clock in the afternoon or early evening, however you want to take a dive into it here. You can see how we develop still around the metro itself, and then it really amps up 5:45, 6 o'clock. It's still around Olathe. So let's pull forward here. Here's Paola, 7:30. There we go, 7:45. And now we get to about 8 o'clock. So anywhere between about 7:45 and 8 p.m. at this time, Paola heads up. That's going to be probably your opportunity to see some very powerful storms and the potential for some severe weather out there. And again, within that severe weather threat, we're still looking at high wind opportunities. Again, gusts at about 50, 70 miles per hour, and we could be dealing with that hail development, right? I'm expecting more of a marble or pea-size hail all the way up to ping pong or golf ball, but there's the potential for 2-inch in diameter hail or greater, okay? We're getting closer to that moderate risk in our severe weather kind of criteria within these storm cells. So that's definitely something that we still have to watch out for, but I think what's going to be more common is going to be that range, maybe pea or marble to ping pong size. But I do think that we have an opportunity to see isolated events of that larger than 2-inch in diameter. So that'll be something that we watch out for here. The one thing that we also discussed, a lot of in our previous update, is how we do not take these forecasts that we show you at what they are, right? This is not the end-all be-all forecast model. Just an example, right? Going from, 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, to just noon alone, we saw a change in our forecast model data. New information came in, new data, new numbers for the atmosphere, new pressure values. We're talking about new wind values, new wind direction values, new temperature values, temperature variations within the mid and upper levels of our atmosphere. All of that changed. We take that information and we put it into our forecast models and we create a new type of model forecast, okay? This is why we say there's no reason you should take this for actually what it is. Take it with a grain of salt.
The ice cream lady is here. Please enjoy.
I really think it's a good day for ice cream. I really do think it's a good day for ice cream out there. We're all giggling here in the newsroom. Yeah, it's ice cream day here at KCTV5. It's well worth it when temperatures are already around 94 degrees. And if you've got an opportunity to get out there, get some ice cream, go ahead and get it out now because we've got those storms. So back to what we were talking about here, you know, this is just giving you a good idea of what we can expect moving forward in time. There have been minor changes. It's not a drastic change to what we saw at about 10 o'clock this morning. It really isn't. But there are changes because the atmosphere constantly changes. It literally changes second by second, just depending on what values you're looking at. Pressures change minute by minute. Temperature changes second by second. Moisture within different levels of the atmosphere, second by second. So we're only taking a sample every couple of hours of what the atmosphere is doing at that particular time. And then we take that data and we take what we know from previous forecast models. We take our skills as meteorologists and what we've known over the years, and in my particular situation, about 15 years worth of experience, and we go ahead and we extrapolate data to give you a better forecast model. That's why things change sometimes, all right? But we're here to protect you. We're here to help you guys out. That's why we get online, we get on television, and we let you know what kind of data we're seeing right now at this time. So that way, if it does happen, which there is confidence obviously within our models, if this does happen, you are safe, you're prepared, you're ready for this. Not only for yourself, but for your kids, for your pets, for your grandmother, for your family, right? That's what we're here for. We care about you guys, and that's why we do what we do here, all right? We're just trying to make you guys safe. This is not trying to do a scare tactic on you. This is not what we're about. We want to make sure that you are prepped for a scenario that brings in some significant wet weather, some very significant wind that could do some serious damage if we haven't prepared for it, all right? So that's what we're here for. That's all. All right, so let's see. What have we got here on social media? Let's see. Jinx says, and I love this comment, we take everything the weather people say with a grain of salt. Honestly, that's good. That's a good thought process here. Because again, we're not here to give you absoluteness to our forecast model runs. If it was absolute, if this was absolutely going to happen no matter what, exactly the way it was going to happen at 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, then it wouldn't be forecasting. This would be facting. And then you necessarily wouldn't have a meteorologist. You wouldn't need one. Because we would know, everybody would know exactly what the weather's going to do. But that doesn't happen. Weather is very much changing constantly. So we are always trying to run with it and trying to get you that data to where we can give you a very good idea of what may happen in the near future, especially in this particular situation. So I like that comment, Jinx. I think that's a way to look at it. But I hope you take that and you go, okay, we should still prep for this. We should still prepare for this. Do I have batteries, you know, for my flashlight? Is my cell phone fully charged? Because I don't want to leave it in an outlet, because if I lose power, I might surge energy into my smart device, and now all of a sudden, I don't have a smartphone anymore because it surged electricity into my smartphone and burned it out. That's a bad situation. Do I have water? Do I have non-perishable food? These are kinds of things that if a serious situation comes on deck and someone can't get to you for hours at a time, you have something to keep you going for that time frame. Maybe it's not a couple of hours. Maybe it's 24 hours. Having that water, having that food, having that safe place that you go to in case stuff really starts to hit the fan, that's the stuff that we got to think about, right? We want to prepare you for that. Dakota says, ice cream is so good in the summer. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's very good in the summer. All right, Janae, what else do we have here? Do we have any other kind of questions, comments? Let's see. Dakota says, I got Dodge Dart window rolled up right now. Trying to put that in there. I think.
Also saying congrats on a baby boy.
Oh, that's so kind, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let's see. Did we have an issue with our video? Are we having issues with our video right now?
Looks like it froze up on him.
All right, let's see if we can get it back.
I was bothering you. It's my fault.
Let's see, we're still live.
All right, we're still live. Not sure if you guys can hear you. We're having a little bit of issues. Not sure what I'm saying right now. We are still live, just having issues with our visual right now. And I think it was because I spent too much time talking with you guys and not moving around the cursor on my monitor. We might have fallen asleep here, and I don't know if that affects the cameras or not. So we'll see if we can get that kind of sort of fixed here. Janae's going to be popping on in here to help me out. So if she does fix it, you might see her for a quick second there. Which, by the way, Janae, thank you so much for helping me out on this. Might be technical difficulties, hardcore here, friends. So let's see. I wonder if I go ahead and I change over to the camera. Let's go. I'm going to focus on what we're doing on the radar system there. So I'm going to click on that and see if that pops on up. And it looks like we've actually frozen on it all the way around when it comes down to it.
We'll be back on that.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will be back. We're going to fix this like ASAP.